Good morning, everybody. This is Dan Williams, Sunday School class, Lexington Baptist, for September 22nd. We've come to the next to the last study in Bemidbar, Numbers, means in the wilderness. And so we're looking at Numbers 34 and all of chapter 34 and half of 35. Next week we'll finish 35 and all of 16. There's only 13 verses in 16. So we'll finish up Numbers. So what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about Israel. Um, we are looking at the land of Israel, and I'm not going to read all of this, but I highlight a few things. This is talking about the borders of Israel, the delineation of what is going to be the nation of Israel. And God spoke to Moses, Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, when you enter the land of Canaan, this is the land that shall fall to you. The southern border shall extend from the Dead Sea to the east, and the western borders have the Mediterranean Sea, and your north border, and it starts naming places. We're not really sure where all these places are, and how do you draw the lines between these places? There's not a map made in real time when this was written. But it says, this is the land that you are to apportion by lot among you as a possession, which Yahweh has commanded to give to the 9.5 tribes. And because the 2.5 tribes have already received their land, they know where that will be on the east side of the Jordan. But they have yet to divide up how the land's going to be on the west side of Jordan. But if you take all those places that were mentioned in this passage, you get something that looks something like this trapezoid. It's approximation. We we do know when you're talking to Israel, you're talking Dead Sea and Sea of Galilee and the land thereabouts. Jerusalem's right here, a little bit northwest of the Dead Sea, and so. But is this, modern day Israel goes down further than that? What's the deal here? How many comments and discussions about the biblical borders of Israel have you heard over the years? Some people say that someday Israel will occupy the borders exactly as the Bible defines them. Well, the Bible doesn't exactly define them too clearly. Others say that those borders were in the past and they don't have anything to do with present day Israel. Interestingly, most people don't really know what the Bible actually says about the borders. So let's see what it says. On that day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram. Go all the way back to Abram, before he's even Abraham. And he chose Abram and he said, to your descendants, I've given this land from the river of Egypt, that'd be the Nile River, as far as the river, the great river Euphrates. Well, we know where that is. So look at the countries that would be affected if the borders given in Genesis became a reality today. It would look something like this: Nile River, River Euphrates, and even these lines are not exactly, that's just an approximation. But here we have modern day Israel is this little wedge about the size of New Jersey. But the state of Israel doesn't even really control all of that. You've got Palestinian controlled territory on the west bank of the Jordan River and the Gaza Strip. Now, they they don't have statehood. Uh, Actually, at one point, and I'm going to show you a little video on that, there was a two-state status for a Palestinian state and Israel, but it just fell apart, as you'll see in this little video in a second. But as far as the borders go, you can go to Deuteronomy, and Moses was told, every place on which the sole of your foot shall tread shall be yours. Your border shall be from the wilderness to Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, as far as the western sea. So that's still approximately Euphrates River to the Mediterranean. Doesn't clearly define the north and south. And then this in Ezekiel, it does say the north side will run from the Mediterranean Sea. Well, that's kind of ambiguous too. What's the edge of the north of the Mediterranean Sea? But it says, it names a road, and a couple of these places we don't know where these are today. The east boundary will run between this place and this place. Dead Seas, Tamar. Well, Tamar isn't as far down south as as it sounds like if you draw a line from Euphrates to Nile. So it's a little ambiguous. And somebody, I don't know what BHC, who that is, it's easy to understand how people can become confused over the questions concerning the borders of Israel. He said, this answer simply won't be answered by reading our Bibles. Um, there's some clues in some of the non-canonical, non-biblical writings found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so it's a little confusing, but we think approximately we know where the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea and where Jerusalem is. Um, it's possible that some of this territory will stretch down into Africa, but it's a tough question to delineate. All we know that right now there's a nation that has reestablished itself. No other country's ever done this, to completely lose their nation, their land, their language, and then to come back. And that's exactly what's happened, because the nation of Israel began 3,500 years ago. And of course, less than 2,000 years ago, when the second temple was destroyed, 70 AD, and Jews were persecuted, fleeing for their lives, being dispersed by the Romans, just lost everything. Yet they were still Jewish people here and there. And I've got a little video I want to show you that kind of gives the history of how they've come back to the state where they are today. This is a little graph looking at the population of Israel. I was shocked to find this. This is recently. I thought the population of Israel just a few years ago, it was being said it was 8 million, but this is closer to 9.5 million. It's been a steady incline, increase of population, but yet the world population of this population of this nation of Israel is only 0.12%. And that doesn't mean that all these 9 million people in Israel are Jewish, by no means. How many Jews are there in the world today? There are only 15.2 million identifiable, claiming to be Jewish people in the world. And less than half of that number, 47%, are in Israel. So of the nine, this said, I found this as of January 1, the population of Israel is 9.9 million, closer to 10 million. But of that, only 7 million, 427,000, would claim to be or are Jewish. Now compare that with 6 million Jews are in the United States. Wow. Of all the Jews in the world, 15.2 million, a little more than half of those are in Israel, and just about the other half are in America. And you see these numbers. The next closest country that has a lot of Jewish people is France, with 500,000 almost, Canada. And so all these add up to another couple million. So that's where you get your 15 million. But we are intricately connected to Israel, just by if no other reason, just by the number of Jewish people that have a concern and interest and a connection and a tie to that land. But that's another thing that just boggles your mind, is to what we see in the media. How many Jewish congressmen, Jewish leaders in government, Jewish entertainment people in the world they're seemingly anti-Semitic. They're not supportive of Israel. They are saying free Palestine. Um, that's almost inexplicable. Inexplicable. The Israel population by religion, though, is roughly like 73% of the 9.9 million are Jewish. A good chunk of them are Muslim, and only 2% are Christian. Well, that leaves several other percentage points, or something else. And there's people that I'm sure, atheists, Buddhists, Druze. There's all kind of different factions there. But I want to show you this little video I found that's 6 minutes long. Gives you a good history on how the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that we see today, how it began. It is something that didn't just creep up in our lifetime or the past 100 years. It goes back thousands of years. So watch this. I think it'll be helpful. Back to Bemidbar. Um, he explains about, of course, Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh had their land, but the rest of the tribes, saying, "These are the names of the men which shall divide your land unto you: Eleazar the priest and Joshua between." So these two men, the high priest and Joshua, they were to oversee the division of the land. And this is what they did. They took a prince of every tribe. And so, like of the tribe of Judah, there was Caleb. And most of these names you don't recognize. You recognize the names of the tribes: Dan, Ephraim, Zebulun, Issachar. Uh, but these other names, we don't really know. There's nothing else written about who these princes were, but they were the overseers, the leaders of each tribe. And the rest of this lesson kind of got into this thing about cities of refuge. And Yahweh spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab and the Jordan, saying, Command the children of Israel that they give unto the Levites of the inheritance of their possessions cities to dwell in. And ye shall give also unto the Levites suburbs for the cities round about them. So it's true that the Levites were not given substantial areas of the promised land, but they were given cities and a certain amount of land surrounding each city for them to support themselves and their cattle, to plant crops. So like it was 1,000 cubits around each of these cities. Now, how many cities were they given? They were given 48 cities. Among the cities which ye shall give to the Levites, there shall be 6 of those 48 cities will be called cities for refuge, which shall appoint for the manslayer, specifically for someone who either voluntarily killed someone or involuntarily caused the death of someone. That person guilty of that would could run there and find sanctuary, find safety, until they could, be judged accordingly by a court. And to them you shall add 42 cities. So that was the Levites were commanded to be given a total of 48 cities, 42 cities from the tribes, and 6 cities designated as cities of refuge. They were for legal asylum purposes to protect all the people from individuals carrying out justice without due process. So it protected individuals from vigilante justice. And this is specifically just talking only about killing of someone else, not theft or arson or anything like that, adultery and that kind of thing. If you were chopping wood and the axe came off your axe handle and killed your neighbor that was standing there, you are responsible for that man's death. Now, his family, maybe they would say, "Oh, this was an accident. We're not going to hold you accountable for this." But in that culture, suppose the man that was accidentally killed, he was the only breadwinner for that family. What do you do? Are you responsible, accident or not? Um, and so, we experience these kind of things. I had a car accident, and it was my fault. But that's why we bought insurance. But I needed to take care of the person whose car I hit. And so our Judeo-Christian ethic, our laws come from these kinds of things, these kinds of provisions. But when you're talking about the death of someone, um, that family could come after you, even if it was an accident. They might be very, very angry that you were careless, or at the very least, and they can come kill you. And so this was created, cities of refuge. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When you come over Jordan, then you shall appoint you cities to you, cities of refuge, that the slayer may flee thither, which killeth any person at unawares. And they shall be unto you cities for refuge from the avengers. See, someone that would seek vengeance, that the manslayer die not until he stand before the congregation in judgment. So there would be a standing before the congregation in judgment, but it protected someone from vigilante justice. Cities of refuge for legal asylum purposes, to protect all the people from individuals carrying out justice without due process. And you shall give 3 cities on one side of Jordan, and 3 cities in the land of Canaan, the east side and the west side. These 6 cities shall be a refuge both for the children of Israel and for the stranger and for the sojourner. So this was very judicious, gracious protection established by God the Father, that anyone coming in through the land, if they either accidentally or purposefully killed someone, they could go to a city of refuge until things could be sorted out. And so you can begin to see the analogy we're going to make, that who is our refuge. You know, we got a lot of songs about that. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are saved. Um, where do I go when I need someone to turn to? I go to the rock of my salvation. You know, he's someone we go to for safety, for peace in the midst of the storm. He's our shelter in the time of storm. Under his wings, the analogies go on, that he is our refuge, our strength, our very present help in time of trouble. This was God's law for the land that the children of Israel would occupy. But the law was beneficial for all the people. These 6 cities are like Yahusha, as I just said. Hebrews 6:18. We who have fled for refuge might have strong encouragement to hold fast to the hope set before us. I'm going to show you this little video that gives an overview, good explanation of the cities of refuge. And the man teaching this brings out the point I want to make at the end of this about Jesus, Yahusha, being our refuge.
Today.
All right. I thought that was a great explanation of the cities of refuge, and I love the point that the teacher made at the end. That's the main point of this lesson, that you have a refuge in Jesus Christ, Yahushua HaMashiach. We can run to him and find our safety, because we're all guilty, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. We're sinners, and we need that place of refuge. Of course, when the judgment day comes and we stand before Almighty Father as guilty, we have an advocate. We have our Savior, Messiah, who will stand up and say, I've paid the price for this sinner, and he belongs to me. I look forward to that day. All right, next week we will finish up Bemidbar with um, 35:16 through 36. That's 13. And I've got one more song I want to leave with you. I edited it down just a couple minutes. Um, I'm not even sure who the song is by. You might could Google it and find out by the title. You Are My Refuge, I think. But it uses that word refuge. I was looking for a song that said just that, that he is our refuge. I hope you have found your refuge in him for everything that comes along. No, doesn't matter if it's a big problem or a small problem. You run to him for safety, for peace, for direction, for guidance, and that is where you belong. That's in him we live and move and have our being. So bless you. See you next week. Thanks. Bye.